Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video, we are going to be talking about the Stack Navigator, which is going to be the introduction to any sort of routing or navigation in our native app at all, which, by the way, is something that is quite a bit different than normal React for the web. So let's get going on that right now. Okay, and I mentioned that because this is an intermediate series, I won't be showing some of the things that I showed in the React Native for Everyone series. Obviously, if you're a subscriber, you're going to want to go ahead and watch that to get set up. And the reason that is because, well, there's a lot to cover here. And so in these videos, I'm not going to be teaching you basic React stuff, but I will be teaching React Native stuff that we haven't gone over yet in the other series. I mean, we did go over basics of styling and some of the basic components like view and text, but we haven't gone over anything like navigation. We haven't gone over anything about touchable highlights or well, I guess we did a little bit of input stuff, but we didn't save any data. We didn't hit an API. We didn't work with lists, which is actually something that's weird in React Native. If you want to think of it as being weird, it's just different than normal React. And so in this video, what I wanted to do is get set up with our navigation. Now, navigation, just like lists, is different than React for the web. And it's different in a lot of ways. In fact, we don't have the same kind of React router routing system that you would typically be used to, where you're looking for a URL to determine your location or using links. In fact, we're not using anything like that at all. And because of that, the idea around navigation within React Native can really be confusing for people just starting out. Now, here we have our app.js file, and we're going to be using a React navigation platform called React-Navigation. We're using this because this is the one that Expo works best with. I've also used, I think it's React-Native-Navigation by Wix, which is super nice, however, doesn't work within Expo. It's not a big deal because honestly, this one works very well as well. If I had one major complaint about React Native as a whole, it would be the entire landscape of navigation platforms, although it has gotten significantly better. So let's go ahead and head to our terminal. Now I'm going to open up a new tab here. Let's move this over. And now you want to make sure that you are in your application directory before you go and install something. And we're going to do npm install react-navigation-save. Now you might be wondering, hey, you said not to use npm. Well, that's not necessarily the case overall. What we did need is we needed Yarn to be installed so that create React Native app could grab the dependencies. But after that whole process is done, we can use npm just fine here. This is going to work just a-okay. If you want to continue to use Yarn here, that is 100% cool too. The main reason I use npm is just muscle memory at this point. So I want to click enter here, React-Navigation-save, and let this install into our app. Okay, now that we have this installed, let's head back to our app and import the Stack Navigator. Now, I'm in app.js, which is really the only file we have right now. And inside of here, from here, we're going to import a Stack Navigator. Okay, Navigator. Stack Navigator from, and if you could guess it, it's React-Navigation. Navigation. Okay. So check it out. We now have Stack Navigator being imported into our application. At this point, the simulator, well, unable to resolve module. Now, you'll occasionally get errors like this. This says it cannot find the node module, React Native scripts, bin, CRNA entry. Yeah, you may occasionally get errors like this, and that's part of the problem with, well, React Native, is that there's so much complex stuff going on that occasionally you get a big red error that is not your fault. So in this case, what we want to do is head to our terminal here. I'm going to close out of this tab here. It says it failed building. Yeah, it wants us to run npm install inside of our project. Now, this could have been a symptom of using the npm just now. So I'm going to go ahead and run npm install. again, React Native is touchy. So one of those things that when you're working in these projects, you kind of have to have a certain amount of expectations that you're going to be seeing some red, some of which may be fixed by running an npm install, some of which may be fixed by simply stopping the bundler and rerunning it. And to be honest, those are a handful of tools whenever you hit a big old error that makes no sense. The third step there is just undo the code that you did until it works. So with React Native, again, you're kind of got to expect a little bit of red here as growing pains as you start to get ready. Okay, and now that is installed, you might think that this error is going to go away. And let's see, we're building our bundle. And it looks like we're good. Once again, we have hello. So it looks like all we needed to do was simply run npm install. And like I mentioned, that could have been a result of us not using Yarn to install this. It could just be because React Native is temperamental. Okay, so we have our hello. Let's go ahead and now get our Stack Navigator all set up. So what we need to do here is actually use this navigator. Now, although I'm only talking about Stack Navigator as it is, there's a lot of different kinds of other navigators as well in this React navigation pack. But for now, what you need to know is Stack Navigation. Well, we have a main screen, and then if you want to browse to another screen, this stack is sort of the next one in the stack, or at least it goes to the next page, in which you'll have a back arrow. You can pull it back with a gesture or that kind of thing. So Stack Navigator is definitely the most like a link system that you're used to within any sort of other platform. Now let's go ahead and let's simply set up our actual navigation. The first thing we want to do is export the navigator instead of our app. Okay, right now we're exporting our default app component. So let's get rid of this export default and let's put it at the bottom here. We're going to export default. But instead of exporting a default app class, we're going to export a default Stack Navigator. Now, Stack Navigator is a function that accepts an object, and inside of this object, we're going to be giving it some different home screens, or different screens, so to say. So basically, we want to define a screen. In this case, we could say, hey, our home screen. The word home here is not necessarily important. It's just the first item. And inside of this property is another object, in which it's going to take a screen property. The screen property is going to be the actual React component that you want to be on this particular screen. Now keep in mind, this is not a web router. This doesn't work like React Native. You have different screens. You have your home screen, we're gonna have a detail screen, a post screen, that sort of stuff. So we're gonna have the screen, and now the screen accepts a component. If you remember, we had our app component up top here, so we can say, hey, the home screen is going to be the screen app. Now, if I save this, let's see what happens here, because we should be using the Stack Navigator. Keep in mind that the only reason our application renders the way it does is through the default export. And the Stack Navigator is technically outputting a React component. So export default Stack Navigator is going to tell us that, hey, the very first screen is the app. So let's check it out in our simulator, and hey, this changed a little bit. Now, how did it change? We got a top bar up top here. Okay, so this is pretty darn cool. And although it may not seem like anything major, in the next video what we're going to be doing is customizing this top bar quite a little bit to give you some ideas about what's going on with this. Because up top here is essentially showing us that we are now have some sort of header with our navigation. This sort of status bar, this header style, this sort of thing comes through the navigator. And although it's blank and gray, it won't be for long. And if you were to view this on Android, it would be very, very similar, just more of the material design style. Now, I am going to be having the iOS simulator open for most of this series, but I encourage you to check the app throughout in the Android emulator as well, just so I don't have to be running them. Also, the Android emulator takes up more CPU, so while screen recording, it's not necessarily as ideal. But I do have Android phones at home that I'm checking these apps on all the time through Expo. So if you do have anything like like that around, it could be a fun time to get your app actually on a real device. So check it out. We have now added our navigator. We aren't doing any sort of navigation yet, but that will come very soon. And so in the next video, we're going to be styling and talking a little bit about our navigation header, and then we're actually going to get ourselves navigating to another page. As always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you want to complete this series, head on over to leveluptutorials.com/store, and you can purchase this series outright. You can even grab it in a combo pack with React Native for everyone if you want the basics and the intermediate all in one go. So thanks so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.